very special welcome to all of you watching us on BNN TV, RCN, and also Verizon, and also those of you who are watching us on bnntv.org live stream, and also people who are watching us on social media, YouTube, Facebook. And a very special program tonight because a very special guest is here with us tonight. Jim Saya, my co-host, is not going to be able to be with us tonight, but he'll join us on the next show. But Jim and I have had the opportunity and privilege of talking to a lot of people, interviewing a lot of people in the movie industry, in the independent film industry, people who are associated with film production. Many of those people are here local, many of the people come from outside. But we have a young man with us today, Christopher Ferreira, and he comes from the area, New England, and he's going to talk to us all about what he does in the independent film community. Now, as you know, as Jim and I have spoken many, many times with the many people that we've had the opportunity and pleasure to have here on the program, we enjoy bringing the show to you, and hopefully you enjoy it as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Jim and I have had a discussion with many people about how many things people actually have to do when they're involved in making a movie. Not just acting, not just directing, not just producing, not just doing the stunts, not just writing it and putting everything together and making sure that everything works. They're involved with the entire process, the entire production. And many of those people have talked about that, and no different tonight. Chris is going to tell us all about what he does in making a movie. So no further ado, let me introduce our very special guest, Chris Ferreira.
Hi, John, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure.
It's more like, what don't you do on a film set?
I think that's probably more accurate.
You have to do everything.
It's what you don't do.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
And, right. And you're starting off in an independent film production, so you actually
get to see all aspects of it.
Are involved with everything.
You can't just be one thing anymore. You can't just be an actor or a writer, because everybody is either one thing or the other. So you have to wear many hats. You have to be a writer, producer, director, actor, film crew, light guy. Sometimes, everything that you can do.
We had a young man by the name of Mark Lund on the program, and his independent film has made it big time. And he actually is involved with the PR with it as well.
That's the hard part too.
He's involved with the PR, and I see his stuff on social media too.
Yeah.
So he's done a lot too. But he's out there promoting it, and that's probably one of the most important things in the movie too, is PR.
Sometimes at the end of the project, there's not enough publicity, money left, or gusto in the film. Yeah, and it's just
so we're gonna spend the hour tonight talking about that and seeing what you're involved with, and talking about how the movie industry has related to what you do. But we'd also like to invite, if we can, you to partake in the show tonight. It's interactive television, actually. And we're going to ask you, if you would like to, you can join us. Not here, but through the phone. 617-708-3280, 617-708-3280. And it'll be an opportunity for you to take part in our show as well. We're back up here and running on BNN TV, and we're so glad to have you with us, and we're so glad to be doing shows that you enjoy, and we enjoy bringing them to you. Chris is also going to tell us about some of the clips that he has brought to BNN tonight. He's got 2 trailers, is that correct?
So the first is a trailer, to promote your work. It's a film I directed and wrote screenplay in 2013. It's a supernatural thriller, sort of like a drama, like kind of a horror Halloween movie. So we shot it up here. We shot it in Weymouth, South Weymouth. We shot it in Salem, Massachusetts. A little bit in Rhode Island, Providence. The film is called The Last Halloween. It's from DC Productions. That's a production company I have with my friend Darren Darcy. And so this was, a horror thriller. We shot it at a wax museum, and right now I think we're going to show just the minute and a half.
We're going to show that in just a few minutes.
And when you're ready.
Yeah, we're going to show that in a little bit. And I know you got a lot of things we're going to show tonight, and the whole hour. So sit back, folks, and you're going to enjoy this ride tonight.
We're on our way up actually to shoot a film right now.
And we're going to talk about that, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But the people at home are saying, Chris, John, Massachusetts, and this is true, folks. This is true. Massachusetts is a hot spot for movies right now, both independent and films from Hollywood.
Absolutely,
there are 5 or 6 projects shooting right now.
Oh, it's cinematic. It's the East Coast. It's beautiful.
It's the East Coast. It's the Hollywood East, pretty much. And the people that have come on the program that we've had the opportunity to talk to, like yourself, are local people from the New England area. But you have been involved in the industry too.
Yeah.
And you've done it. I mean, you're actually out there producing it. So, your background, how did you get involved with this?
So I've always been interested in theater ever since I was younger. Right. I don't know really how I got involved in it. I guess I'm just a fan of storytelling. So I was always a big reader when I was younger. I was a big comic book collector. Right. So I would collect issues of comic books when I was.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit too, right?
So the stories, the storylines drove me. Right. The story of just, life and what we experience, and I brought that into film, and I was always acting.
It's almost like you don't really choose it, it chooses you.
Yeah.
You have something inside that you
Everybody has a story to tell.
Right,
and that's what we haven't seen yet, is that story that's in your eyes, or from your point of view, because we all have one, and it's all just as valid and interesting as anybody else's, and we all, so that's a uniqueness that we can all bring to our art.
And the uniqueness, and that's a very, very good point, because the uniqueness brings out your perspective that other people just don't have.
That's right. Your view on the world, your take on the world, your spin on it, And it's like it's also a fantasy world that we can create and play in, just play like we're kids on the playground, pretending to be this, pretending to be that. It's escape from life, but it's entertaining.
It's entertaining, and there's two sides too, both very, very, I would imagine, can be very difficult. There's the creative side and there's the business side. And that's the side that meshes, and that's the side that you've got to make sure that everything balances.
That's right.
And that can be a very difficult process, right?
It is. I stay away from the business side.
But the creative side.
The creative side, that's the fun side, right?
Right,
of course. But of course you have to balance it too. So it's like just a series of, the guys who get the motivation to do it, and then promote it. I think that it's like, I don't want to be too hokey or too cliche or too like, it's just like, I like the condition, the human condition, the choices that we make, like fate or, our
well, that's
path
what
in
people
life.
can relate to,
Exactly.
of course.
Right. And just kind of put a spin on that, a mirror on the world, but also entertain, tell like a fun story.
And that's part of that's why people watch television. Exactly. And that's why people go to the movies.
Escape, yeah. To forget their problems.
But it's also could be cathartic too. It could be something that
absolutely.
People
throw back
learn
what
a
you
lot
love from your youth, because it's like, like the horror film we made or the supernatural. It's very
surreal,
campy, like the 1960s Batman TV show with Adam West and Burt Ward,
Interesting about that, because you're a comic guy, and when I was a kid, that was a big show. And even though I wasn't like watching it every week, do you know when I appreciated that? I'm talking about the camera angles.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the hokey thing.
The Dutch camera.
It's not. It's really. It's a very sophisticated, advanced series. I mean, this is pretty good.
It makes fun of itself,
Right.
They don't take themselves too seriously.
But even the camera angles.
It's comic booky.
Right.
That show looks like a comic book.
Like the film Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty. It's similar to that.
I was a huge fan of that as a kid.
Right.
I mean, you just hit my heart right there. That's Dick Tracy.
Well, that was
my thing.
The color, the image, the whole thing.
And characters, just very, very unique, different, pieces of life.
But it's also it's a challenge for a filmmaker too. And I know we're going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but it is a little challenging, because you had mentioned, the Warren Beatty film.
Yeah.
And also the Adam West series on ABC. Right. You're not only getting a message across in your vision, which is entertaining and different, but you're also getting a vision that people are already aware of. So you've got to make sure that you're covering all basis there, and you're not doing anything that's going to deviate from the original.
Sure. And that's the problem too, because you recreate a favorite of a youth. You create this like piece of nostalgia that people have in their minds. They always are going to have that purity. So, but Hollywood does it all the time. I mean, Hollywood is just rehashing the same reboot, remake. But I think that independent film scene that's why it's so important, because we can really come together and tell our unique, different.
I was going to say that an independent film, an independent production is it's independent. So you're not doing anything that's necessarily. It's something of you. From you.
That's true. that was my first film. My first film, Human Nature, was like that.
Right.
It was a very kind of personal story, but it was my first attempt, so it was a juvenile attempt at a screenplay writing. You know,
You're getting your feet wet.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's fine.
You know, and we learned from the camera angles and stuff, and how much, and like you said, the business side of it, what the cost of a dollar is, what a dollar gets you on camera, or what, like, you know, a $10,000, $20,000 production value looks like on camera. It's all about making that economical, finding the right camera to shoot for that's not too expensive, to get the look you want, but to make that dollar stretch on our level, because we'd have to hit the industry standard.
You don't necessarily have the same budget as Columbia would, or
try,
Paramount, or you might someday,
well, we might
right?
be able to make a
someday.
better product for that price tag than
Right.
they do for their higher price tag.
Right.
We could probably make $50,000 on screen look a lot more impressive than them spending you know, $200,000. You know, they'll just throw them, but we'll really craft our art, look at it, you know, dissect it, put our heart and soul into it, and because that's what you have to do on our level.
Well, you develop it in every sense of the word.
Yeah. Adaptability.
And about
One thing I mentioned, like a great director told me, that was kind of my mentor back when I was shooting Richard Griffiths. He said, it's like a director asks, is the glass half empty or half full? Or somebody asks, but the director has, well, he has to say, well, does it have to be a glass? What if we can't get a glass? You know, use what you have on set to make your art.
And that's what you do.
Yeah. Kind of, oops.
And that's what you do.
Yeah, see, things happen, mistakes happen. We roll. Let's see.
But
That's the technology involved.
Right. It's also not only a learning process, but it's not only a learning process, but it's a process where you have the location, the venues that a lot of Hollywood people come here for. You have it here. Yeah. You have the Four Seasons, and you have a cadre of an enormous amount of talented actors
there is
here as well.
Absolutely.
And you've got the story ideas, you've got the talent here as well. And that's what we push to.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about the story that you want to tell. Right. You know, a piece of yourself. So, you know, I guess the last Halloween that was the second movie we did. That was actually based on a story that I wrote when I was a kid reading comic books. You know, so it's a story I wrote like 8th grade, and the villain is a very comic booky villain. You know, it's kind of hokey, but you know,
the message gets across, right?
Yeah,
that's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like who are we, and what are we, and where's our place in this universe, and so forth, and stuff like that.
Very philosophical, but brought down to a level where everybody can understand.
We'll get
right?
too crazy, tonight.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we going now? You brought several things for us to look at, and explain a little bit before we're having our technicians cue everything up here. Tell us a little about what we're going to look at.
This is going to be just the teaser trailer, the minute and a half film trailer for the second feature film that I wrote, directed, and produced. Wrote and shot with Darren Darcy, DC Productions. It's called The Last Halloween, and this was shot in Salem, Massachusetts. So this is the trailer.
The Last Halloween. Enjoy.
People around here who were into the devil.
As the lights dim and the air becomes thick with cold,
next time I want to hear you scream, I'll sit you down and put my landlord's head in your lap.
The Last Halloween. That looked very, very good, and very, very professional. And there was something that we didn't mention
What's that?
that I picked up when we were watching that trailer.
Oh yeah.
The music is excellent.
Oh yeah. You're absolutely right about that. That's a good shout
That's
out.
one of the things I picked up right away. The music is, of course, everything about it.
You hear that?
Connects.
That's my John Patrick Brennan from. He was a college friend of mine, and yeah, I reached out to him. I had met him at another. Well, we went to college together. He's a very smart individual, very talented musician, and you know, we met on a I think we hit it off on a philosophical level when we were in college together, and then as the years went on, and I shot my first movie, I happened to see John again at a movie screening. John Brennan, and then he said, "Hey, I do movie soundtracks. If you ever," I'm like, "Absolutely," because that's, one of the tough things is sound, lacking. So I learned,
especially in a film where, I mean, it's bringing you right into the story.
It's orchestra
itself.
He's super talented. Yeah, the music is great. He wrote probably 15 individual, all original tracks, songs for it, and a very operatic, very orchestra feeling of that. So, yeah, it's good that you noticed that.
Congrats. Yeah, congrats. Great. 617-708-3280. 617-708-3280. We're speaking with Chris Ferreira, and Chris is a producer, director, writer, and an actor, and all-around filmmaker.
And I'm a stage actor too. I started acting, in kindergarten actually, when I was probably about 8 years old. And I continued like second grade. I played Santa Claus. I remember I was a kid with like the twirly hat, the propeller on the head. I went and through the scene and stuff. And
like Tom Terrific.
Yeah,
the cartoon Tom Terrific.
Yeah, just played characters, and I always did theater on stage. And I took a break, but then when I went back to high school, I picked it up again, and I went to college for it. I went to 2 different colleges, Dean College in Massachusetts, and then I got my master's at Rhode Island College, and I went to the film program there and met a lot of good connections in Rhode Island, doing theater, did a lot of Shakespeare. But I always had this passion for filmmaking, ever since I saw like Clerks by Kevin Smith in 1993, 94. He was an independent filmmaker who sold his comic book collection actually to finance his film. Yeah. $50,000 from his comics, and he maxed out credit cards. He shot a black and white film in 1994 called Clerks, very independent in New Jersey, and it was brilliant. The dialogue was brilliant. The story that he told was just a unique perspective, something that Hollywood hadn't seen before, and it was just a runaway hit. And he continued, and he was just kind of I could relate to him because he was a big comic book guy. So. I'm a big comic book guy too, so.
And a filmmaker.
Yeah. It's fun,
The last Halloween, give me a little idea of what's happening as far as distribution,
the
film itself,
that's a good
what's
one.
happening.
So we self-financed both films, and we had some offers from some studios for distribution. Had some studios wanted to change the name of the film, and we had some deals, but we kind of it cooled off a little bit. We had a lot of hype and we had a lot of steam going into it. But it was on the heels of, I had just shot another feature. So I kind of shot 2 feature films back to back. And by the end of the last Halloween, we kind of just ran out, I guess, of momentum. And we never had it sealed a distribution deal, but it played in Salem, the town of Salem.
Has it
cinemas.
gone to the festivals?
I did submit to some. So it's on YouTube right now, actually. You can just find it, search the last Halloween, DC Productions film. It's on YouTube, but I think it'll find its audience eventually. It's what we could. I just had fun making it. And that's all it's really about. Have fun, tell your story.
And you shot it.
So we shot. Richard Griffin did the cinematography on it, and then later on, we actually went back and shot some footage. So we shot for about 25 days, but then we took some time off and went back for a couple of days of reshoots. And Raja Samaru did the reshoots, and we kind of morphed the story a little bit because you kind of make the film in the editing room. You make sacrifices. Sometimes you can't always get your vision exactly because you have to modify your story. So when we went to edit that film, it kind of took a different turn, and the story kind of morphed. So we went back and shot some more footage, kind of tweaked the end of the story around a little bit, and it came up great. Added some CGI, some blood effects and stuff like that. So who knows? It may have a sequel. I teased it because it was ambitious, but I still have a plan to do.
You accommodated pretty much.
Yeah. It wasn't the original story that I wanted, that I wrote. Originally that movie, The Last Halloween, was actually about a serial killer who was being pursued by the FBI, by an FBI agent, and the FBI agent's father had an encounter with this character, this killer, this summoner of demons or whatever, back in the day. So now there's a new serial killer out using the name that he used 40 years ago, Bamet. And the father doesn't know if it's the original killer, but it's actually the son who's actually now in the agency that his father was a part of, and is actually now pursuing this villain. So that was the original story. Right. It deviated from that to more of just like a father who was in a cult and kind of played around with some demonic spells, and his son's kind of like snooping about. So that's the kind of story. We took the FBI part out of it for budgetary reasons, so we didn't have to buy a bunch of suits, guns, all that kind of stuff, and the FBI lingo, the jargon. We didn't want to write like a corny script, when we were not on the level, I guess. But now I think I would want to go back and revisit it and kind of morph that story that the movie became into like the story I was originally going for. And we have all the characters and all the actors that were in it. Like it was a great cast. Nat Silver was the lead. Olivia Larson was in it. Jeff White, a friend of mine, was in it. So it just has this. It has this incredible. Tom Palino, who was in both of my films, he's a sad guy. He played like a Frank Jones, who was like a Kolchak, the Night Stalker. Yeah, I don't remember. You remember that show, Kolchak, the Night Stalker? We go after the supernatural type of thing. So we kind of modeled that character.
The supernatural has a very large audience.
Exactly.
It's not segment. It's not a particular segment that watches that.
Yeah.
That's a very pervasive audience that watches that.
And everybody has a
Supernatural
different
is very interesting.
idea.
Supernatural is very interesting to a lot of people.
Exactly.
And even if it's not, it's the entertainment aspect of it is. It's not necessarily the paranormal, but it's a very interesting subject, a very interesting topic, and you can do a lot with it.
Absolutely.
It's almost unlimited.
It's almost unexplored because
exactly.
It's the unknown.
It's
right. Anything could happen. You don't know what's around the next corner. It's like a jump scare, very on your seat, on the edge. You're very interested in the story. Like I was telling my partner, my friend that's going to shoot, my cinematographer right now, Ryan Mahoney. We're going up to shoot in Maine. I was telling him, like, in a film, the best of films, the filmmakers have to like win the audience over at a point. There's a point where you earn like the audience to take them on the journey with you. And then from there in the story, you can almost go anywhere. And
that actually begins at the beginning of the film, pretty much, right?
Yeah, that begins with the idea. I guess the first idea of how you're going to flesh out the idea, the twist of the story, the actual, development of the characters, and that the audience can really relate to those characters, and buy into the story, and really fall in love with the characters, and that's what makes them vulnerable to when they feel something for these characters, So.
Well, good luck in the project.
Yeah, that's the third film. That's the film I'm actually going towards right now. It's a very like introspective look, on like who we are, or what it means to be a human, or different. Like
reflective.
Yeah,
kind of reflective.
Right. So the way the mind works, like the decision-making process.
Right.
So it's so we're centering it around like I did a film actually with the Autism Project as well in Rhode Island called Randy's Canvas. So it's not stealing, but I'm going to have an autistic kid in the movie. I'm going to have an actual autistic boy that I see the relationship with his family, and he's just such a brilliant soul, a brilliant mind, and I see like the way his father loves him and cares for him, but to have this different take on the world and to really go about life like this, where people look at you like, I don't understand that because it's different than me, But
the film will put that into perspective.
Yeah. Right.
And that's part of the creative process with that too.
Exactly.
You're putting everything into perspective here.
Absolutely.
So people do have a
perspectives.
better
That's exactly.
Yeah. So when people do watch
perceptions,
because when people do watch this film, they may not have understood, but now kind of they do.
Right. Everything's you learn to stop explaining yourself or over-explaining yourself when you learn that people only understand from their level of perception.
Right.
you know, from their level of understanding.
That sounds like a very creative and a very good project that you're working on.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That's why I'm kind of having fun with it. You know, it's going to be a little different, a little artsy if shot the right way. You know, but trying to be very true, very real, down to earth. You know, humanistic to the source material. You know.
Good project. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know?
We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk about we have is a trail, not a trailer.
Well, we have a
but
clip.
We have a clip
clip
of and we're going to
from
talk
the movie,
about
from
that in
the
a
last
little
movie I
bit.
did, yeah.
We're going to watch a clip in just a little bit, and that clip, Chris is going to explain to us what that is.
So,
and
yeah.
I just wanted to, before that, I would love people to call in and ask you a question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know,
Anything
you're
about
such a great
filmmaking process, or
very, very informative guest, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are sitting there. Hey, Chris, I want to know about this stuff.
absolutely. Invite them to
Chris
call.
is
I'd love
here to answer
take a
your
call.
questions.
Yeah,
So 617-708-3280, 617-708-3280. We have some budding filmmakers
Yeah.
out there, Chris.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, and we can,
love advice, give you relationship advice, or
Yeah.
give you some stock tips maybe, or vacation spots, good spots, you know, whatever you
All
want to
sorts
do,
of things.
whatever's on your mind.
all sorts of things. Maybe your own show too, right? That would be great.
I'd love to co-host with you someday, maybe. That'd be fun.
617-708-3280, 617-708-3280. And all joking aside, though, you're right about being a person of all talents and wearing many hats. You really do have to do that.
I know you are too, John. I know you're an actor. You have this show.
And
You
the
know,
writer,
that's
you know, I
just-
do the film
You
reviews
have
and
to
all
be.
that sort of
You're
stuff.
an interesting person. You've been around. You've seen life. You know, I can tell. It's just, you know, it's all, we're all just.
But
going
you know,
through
and
this
it's
world
important
together.
to bring this up to it too, because people sitting home and public access gives people an opportunity to see people like yourself who actually just bring it out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these
Yeah.
are shows that people come on and they actually talk about what it is that they
things,
do.
Yeah.
And how interesting, how difficult,
Everybody
how
has a
challenging
story.
the movie industry
Everybody has
is.
something to offer.
Right.
So if you're like there, like, what do I do? What do I do? Just do anything is kind of like my motto. It's just like, do something is better than doing nothing, even if it's a mistake or even if it's a step backwards. You know, we learn from it.
And if not everybody does that, that's even better, because
then I have more
the whole idea is
opportunity for me.
Right, right. 617-708-3280, 617-708-3280. Get your questions ready for Chris, and he will be here to answer them for you in at least in the next half hour. This is a whole hour show tonight, but we want to get a lot in so that you can have opportunity to know a little about Chris. And Chris is going to tell you at the end of the show where you can reach him if you would like to. And so right now we're going to give us a little idea about what we're going to look at.
So I'll set this clip up from the last Halloween. So in this clip, we have the reporter. This is the Frank Jones character. So on the left is the Kolchak type character, Kolchak the Night Stalker, played by Tom Paolino. He's met up with the villain of the film, or this guy who believes he has a supernatural connection. He believes he has like a power over the dark forces. So he's in a costume. He's kind of like the villain, a Shakespearean comic booky villain. So now it's almost become a buddy film, where they're sitting at a bar together, just drinking their woes away, because it's kind of like an odd couple pairing, where the villain thinks he's kidnapped this meek, mild reporter type, and he's got him in a bar, and he's just going to sit there and drink before he decides what he's going to do next, who he's going to kill next. So they're just basically alone in an empty bar, contemplating life, and then some unexpected events happen, because that's action, that's film, right? Something has to happen.
That's
do
what we
something.
wanna watch.
So this is a clip from the last Halloween.
Enjoy. I think
Fuck you.
Darren McGavin
We
was
just got here. This is a bar. We've only been here a little while.
We've been here for 2 hours, and you're drunk.
This is a bar. You're supposed to stay in a bar for a while. Helps you soak up the atmosphere. I've been to plenty of bars. Grew up in bars. With my dad and his brothers. You've never been to a bar, have you?
I don't drink.
Your dad never took you to a bar? Weak stomach?
Fuck you.
What did you say to me? Just now you said something. What was it?
Hey, you guys all set for drinks?
Of course we're set for drinks. This is a bar, isn't it? This guy's never been to a bar before.
We have a special.
His daddy never took him to a bar before. What?
You might want to keep your voice down, sir.
We're the only people in here!
Well, I'm here and I don't like it when people yell. It freaks other people out.
Oh, it freaks you out.
Yeah,
Freaks all the other people out.
you're a piece of fucking work, man. You want to keep it down.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell.
It's fine.
His daddy never took him to a bar before. Your daddy probably yelled at you all the time, didn't he?
Alright, fuck this shit. I don't fucking like you, man.
One of those abusive types that you see on television all the time. On Oprah. All the little girls being yelled at by their mean daddies. He probably yelled at you when he was fucking.
You don't want me!
Oh?
I said, you don't want me.
Your daddy must have wanted you. Bad.
Well, we didn't see the whole 5 minutes
sorry.
of that, but we saw a little bit of that. And give us a little, you know what I didn't, I mentioned, I'm going to mention something else.
Right.
We mentioned the music, the first trailer that we saw.
Yep.
The first clip we saw. We mentioned the directing and the writing and all that. You know what I noticed on this that I thought was pretty good?
that?
The editing.
The editing is good in the scene, yeah. It keeps it a little interesting. Yeah, no. We have some special effects in the scene too. We could play a little bit more.
We're going to be playing a little bit more of that. What's that? That's like a 5 minute. It's a whole 5 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
it's the two scenes. So it's actually was supposed to be like a Boston area bar. So this actress has like a little bit of a Boston accent to her. India Pearl is the actress's name. She was a comedian in Boston, I think, like Dorchester area. I don't know if she's still around here.
No, but but comedy's big in Boston. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was a
Stand-up
lot of
comedy's
great
big here.
actors out of
Right.
Boston. You know, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck,
Jay Leno.
Oh,
As far as
yeah, he was right. That's
the
true.
Lowell,
That's
but
true.
The Boston area.
Yeah.
The Wahlbergs.
Yeah, they're good too.
We had an opportunity to have Arthur Wahlberg on the show.
I was in a movie with him as well. I was in a movie that Rena Healy shot called Transsexuals from Outer Space.
He talked about that.
Yeah. Rena's great. I love
That had a
Rena.
lot
She's
of people.
fantastic.
That had a lot of people
Super
in it too, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
a cast of like many
So,
people.
Rena Healy wrote, directed it. It was genius, really original, very high concept script. You know, very, very interesting niche genre, and it's shot beautifully. It's very, very funny. Great talent, great actors in it. Like you mentioned, Arthur Wahlberg, and I'm in it, of course. And then it's edited wonderfully as well by Roland, as the editor, who I'm actually going to be working on another film with him coming up. A film that he wrote himself, and he will be directing pretty soon in Brockton. It's like a 1920s period film about a gentleman who has a speakeasy bar, and then like gangsters get involved and all this stuff. So it's kind of it's
all sorts of great things coming up for you.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
Very
so-
excited. Yeah.
Now let's see if we can go back. Now we're going to continue. We're going to continue with that if we can. Oh, we don't have that.
They're not gonna
Okay.
go back to the
We don't have that yet. So we're going to show the something else in a little bit. We're going to show the comic book.
Yeah, I mentioned I'm a big comic book
Right.
guy. I go to all the conventions. I went to New York Comic Con this year. New York. I usually go to San Diego every year.
This is a serious thing for you. It sounds like, right?
Comic books are big now. you know?
Well, yes, they're very valuable too, and a lot of people don't realize why that is.
Because it's supply and demand. There's only so many comic books made, limited print runs,
Right.
and as time went by,
They become more valuable.
they
and
get
people want
destroyed. There's less copies around. There's less copies in really pristine condition. So that's like printing money. It's just driving up the price. I mean, this is like a piece of history, you know. And it's really going up. And now the movies are being made, like the Marvel movies, and
Stan Lee just.
Yeah, he was a great
couple of years
and
ago.
Steve Ditko now the new Spider-Man movie,
Yep.
the Far From Home trailer is a lot based on Steve Ditko's art. He was the co-creator of Spider-Man, who actually did a show about Steve Ditko. We brought this show to New York Comic Con. This was 2 years ago. It was written and directed by Lenny Schwartz, who I work with a lot in Rhode Island. Lenny Schwartz is a brilliant writer. He writes a lot of comic book scripts. So we actually took this play to New York. It was about Steve Ditko, who you probably never heard. You mentioned Stan Lee, who was absolutely great in Val. Stan Lee was wonderful. But a real driving force behind Spider-Man was the artist, Steve Ditko, who drew Spider-Man and didn't get enough credit that he deserved. His name wasn't on the book all the time. He was trying to drive the plot. Stan Lee would kind of, put him on the back burner, and they had creative differences because Steve had a very unique set of beliefs. But the new movie is a lot of his creation because he created Doctor Strange, and he co-created Spider-Man. So Doctor Strange is in this movie. So that's a big thing. As you can tell, I'm passionate about comic books. I just went off on a tangent.
I can tell. Yeah. But not only you, but here in Boston. Not only you, but here in Boston, we have a lot of conventions, a lot of activities go on here in the city.
Absolutely.
And there are always conventions.
The conventions are fantastic in Boston.
Here.
Yep.
And a lot of people come.
Yeah, I mean, we have our own creators here. I think the creator of The Tick was from around here. The Ninja Turtles creators, Peter Laird, Kevin Eastwood, they're from Maine, up this area. There's a lot of talent around here, New England. So yeah, I guess leading into the clip, I guess we can. So Rhode Island Comic Con was just last weekend at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in the Convention Center of Rhode Island.
Providence, right?
In Providence, Rhode Island, yeah.
Right.
That's kind of my neck of the woods. Well, for this one, Boston has the Fan Expo, but so this was a video. I did a couple of interviews for Motif Magazine, which is Motif Magazine is a arts and entertainment magazine in Rhode Island, in Providence, and they cover all the theater, movies, comic book special events, stuff like that, poetry jams. So this was a couple of interviews I did and a promotional video based on Motif's website, and it's basically me. I edited the video and I shot on site at Rhode Island Comic Con, and also Mike Ryan helped out. He's the publisher at Motif. So this is a little plug. I think you'll enjoy a series of interviews of some famous celebrities that you'll definitely recognize.
And if we're ready, we're going to show that clip.
Comic Con.
Okay, hi, I'm Jade like the Stone from the Motif, and I'm here with
Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 8.
Yes, we do like to be social. We're a bunch of actors that like to chat, so it's different though. It's different. It's more disciplined. It feels like I'm in like a martial arts class. Hi, I'm Jade like the Stone, and I'm with
David Harris, co-chiefs from the Warriors. If you can count, suckers!
Tell me about some of the books you got out right now.
Right? I got 5 books out. They're awesome. They're exciting, action-packed thrillers and horrors. The latest one is called The Stowaway. It's a mystery thriller about a serial killer on a cruise ship, which is a freaking great idea. And Don't Move is fantastic too. It's being made into a movie, which is awesome.
Really?
And I got 3 more books coming out next year called Area 51 Interns, and then another one coming out the year after.
It was a very darker kind of script. So when approaching it again, and after Kevin had his heart attack, he approached the new cut or the new draft of this script with a different angle on it. Kevin's talked about this on social media before about, the script is loosely based that Randall has a heart attack and decides, oh my God, I haven't done anything with my life. All I am is an owner of a convenience store. I should be, I'm always watching films. Why can't I just make a film?
Where can we find your books?
Go to anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your local bookstore, you'll find them. Airports, you'll find them in trash bins all across America. Fireplaces as ash, whatever you need it for. Toilet paper.
That's how we roll here. Thank you, James, for joining us. I appreciate it.
And it's so funny and cute that he makes a de facto version of Clerks of a film. So that being said, it was really weird. It was like a time machine that you're in this kind of time loop of an alternate universe. And it's funny because, the Loki show came out with these variant timelines and stuff. I'm like, this is kind of like a variant in a weird way. But in general, I think the fan base who love the original especially are going to just absolutely embrace it.
Kind of a different light. There's a whole process for me to get into the it's always nerve-wracking. I get scared coming up to these things, like especially this one, Clerks 3. Randall is a chatty motherfucker, and I'm like, why does he have to have so much dialogue? But we get through it.
Still around here, local people actually. Rhode and local people here. So we, I actually got approached about doing this film. Talked to my boy Glenn about it because actually I did another film prior to where he was a writer on it. Exactly. You can see he knows. That's what I was about to say. It told me Simone. So then all of a sudden, he said, I'd love to be a lead guy in this thing. I'm like, I'm not lead material at all. I don't know what you're talking about. But again, working with these people and those guys were it was freaking awesome.
One of the biggest problems we faced was I was growing up too fast, which is good, but bad for the show because we want to keep continuity. So we actually filmed season 2 and season 3 back to back, which was kind of crazy, but also really, really cool.
They'll probably do more movies. I imagine they can't possibly not do more Harley movies. I think people will probably want that.
I think the next move for Margot should be to do a solo movie and not have to put 40 other characters in it. And you could name a movie Harley Quinn, and I think it'd do pretty good. It worked out pretty well for the Joker movie. So I think getting the right people on a Harley movie would be actually the way to go.
We're back. That was a great convention, and a lot of interesting quotes. There was a man on that show,
right?
And he said that I love movies.
Was there a man on that show?
There was somebody on the show.
It was maybe just one
guy, and he said, I always like going to movies. Why not make one?
That is right. That's a brilliant quote.
I think that was a good quote.
That's a brilliant quote. Because we all have a story to tell. Why not it's so easy. Just get an iPhone and get it.
Talking about Chris, talking about stories and how many things that you do and the tenacity and drive that it takes for you to do this, because it's a challenge sometimes to do all of this.
It's completely insane.
But I mean, there's that creative drive that's coming out, and it's a gift that you need to release, because people can't enjoy. If you have it and not release it, then people aren't going to appreciate it because they don't see it. But talking about, and I'd like to share this story because it's important, because you're an actor.
That's what they tell me. Yes.
And you've done a lot of stage, and I've had the opportunity of being on stage too. But you've done stage too, and
completely different.
But great training.
Yeah.
Great training.
I wish they weren't so different, because we
were
just talking about how hard acting is.
Especially on stage, versus film or television or whatever. But Pat O'Brien was just starting out, and it was either off Broadway or not, probably off Broadway.
Right. Yeah.
And it was probably a cold, rainy night, and he wasn't well.
Okay.
He was not feeling well. He was under the weather and just not feeling well.
Right.
And he was in his dressing room and thought to himself, well, show must go on, folks.
Yeah.
I've got to go out there and do my best.
Put on a smile like Buster Keaton. Put on a happy face. Lights, camera, action.
Face. Right, exactly.
Ready or not, here we come.
He went out on stage, and there was no one in the audience because the weather was bad or whatever, except one man.
Okay.
There was one guy in the audience, folks.
Really? But
in this theater. Yeah. But he said to himself, hey, look, I'm not feeling all that great. It's a bad night out, but he came to see the show. I'm giving my best.
Right.
He gave his best.
Yep.
At the end of the performance, Pat O'Brien went back to his dressing room. A knock on the door, Chris.
Yeah.
A knock on the door.
God, Lord, is that you? Who's it?
And Pat O'Brien answered the door and said, can I help you? He said, yes, I want to say hi. I'm the guy that's sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
And Pat O'Brien is saying, wow, I've got to say something to you. I said, no one was here tonight. It's been a pretty rough night, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I gave it my best. He said, you did give it your best. Mr. O'Brien, I'm a talent scout. I'd like to talk to you.
Wow.
That's a true story.
Absolutely, yeah. That reminds me of the same thing like with Chaz Palminteri that did the Bronx Tale.
With Robert De Niro?
Yeah, Robert De Niro was in the audience that night, and he won him over, and then he was like, I'll offer you $500,000, I'll offer you $1 million. He turned him down. I'll offer you $2 million. He turned him down, and he's like, because Chaz wanted to play that role, and he stuck to his guns. But yeah, you never know who's in the audience. You never know
or watching television or watching these movies, and actually, you don't. You really don't.
It doesn't matter.
No,
your
of course
story
not.
is just as valid,
Right,
and you should.
And how they relate,
people
relate to different things based on their perspectives, their background, and how they relate to certain things.
Yeah, but you never know when your art or your influence to somebody else might save their life.
Right.
I don't know, somebody's like depressed, or they're looking to an escape. They're looking for like a story, looking to put themselves out of themselves, and they see something you did or you created that they relate to, or they feel it was a performance or on stage, and they get inspired and say, hey, if that character does that, why can't I do something like, and it just takes on, and they say like, your work inspired me, or I related to that, and it was cheered up, or I got better, had a different outlook on life, And so it can change the world. We all have a voice, and that's the only way we
You're
grow.
speaking through your film, and you're getting your message across.
Yes.
And that's what people relate to.
Yeah. Human nature, like we're all in this together. We're all the human race. We all are in the struggle, and you have a voice, and your voice is valid. And we are all, our uniqueness, our differences are what are beautiful about us, are what brings us together. So your story is the most beautiful story, because somebody might see in your story what they need to hear in their own life to get themselves out of their story, and you never know, because how, just that simple act of kindness can turn the day around. That's like changes, that's life, that's destiny, that's the place we're going, where we are as a human. We're a human species. We have to connectivity.
We're not all that much different, are we?
We're all the same. We're all the same.
Pretty much.
All stuck in the same boat. This is spinning globe.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask, give us a call, 617-708-3280, 617-708-3280. It's your opportunity to speak to Chris tonight, talk about the film industry, whatever. Give us a call. And we'd love to hear from you. And we really don't have a whole lot of time left. So what I'd like to do before we actually wrap up the show, I'd like to thank all of the people here at BNN, all of the crew, studio crew, that have been so great in putting and helping us put this show on tonight, and so that you have the opportunity to see it, you have the opportunity to hear and see Chris, talk about see what he's doing, and hopefully you'll have a chance to see some of the projects.
Beautiful studio, beautiful building, unbelievable architecture.
It is.
You were telling me that before. You're like,
the old MBTA power station converted, right?
And I looked up, and I was this gorgeous white, the giant glass window that was just a beautiful facade, and beautiful stonework and masonry.
And we do good things here too.
Absolutely.
We
Beautiful
beautiful
people, amazing people, amazing connection, amazing. Purpose, connectivity to the world, and this is what life is. I'm so glad I could be here tonight. So
we're
thank you
glad
so
that you
much
were
for
here
having
too.
me. I really appreciate
and
it.
And that brings us to something else that we're very, very happy. All of us here are so happy that you're able to join us here. We would also like to ask you a question.
Oh, geez.
Well, it's not a very difficult question, and it's actually more of a question for the audience. Okay. Because we kind of already know.
If it's a math problem, I might need a little bit of scrap paper.
No, we kind of already know the answer to this, but for the benefit of the home audience that may not know the answer, they'll perhaps want to know the answer, and that is, Chris, how do we get in contact with you if we would like to?
Okay, so you can reach out to me on Facebook, social media. I have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. My Facebook is just Christopher Ferreira, and we have also a DC Productions page. It's the production company is called D.C. Productions.
Just like District of Columbia.
Yeah, right? Well, like DC Comics. So that was what I was going, comic books. But it stands for Darren and Chris, DC, which we established in 2011, 2012 when we shot. And both of our features were SAG, actually. They were both union productions. Some SAG.
So SAG actors to be in there as well, as plus non-union.
Okay. Yeah, I try. I love SAG Productions. There's definitely some talent out there. This one's going to be a little bit experimental, so we're kind of shooting on a lot of different cameras and a lot of different locations.
It sounds like a challenge for the editors, though.
Oh yeah. The story is really going to be made in the editing room, and my director of photography is fantastic. Ryan Mahoney has like a beautiful eye. He shoots just gorgeous scenery. And we're gonna go with a few different styles. I don't want to give too much away, but because I'll say this. Well, we might shoot on an actual film, on 16 millimeter, because I used to be a projectionist at a movie theater. So I grew up. My first films I ever made, I spliced 35 millimeter film. I went VCR to VCR, 2 video cassettes. I spliced in a CD player for audio. That's how I taught myself how to filmmaking. but that's still basically the art of filmmaking, you know? And these digital cameras, they help, but
they're more convenient in a lot of ways, of course.
Right, it's convenient, but you know, it's also technology. It's a program. You have to learn all these shortcuts, these technical things. You know, it's basically at the end of the day, it's splicing together frames of life, just pieces of film with light show through.
Like a montage.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of.
You know, it's a story. You're making a story, a sequence in the editing. So, I guess that's your main drive. Is tell a good story, tell a personal story. That's what I was always taught. You know, to tell your story, because nobody has your story. Like
and
you.
Right, and you've got a lot of good things coming up too. You're busy.
Yeah. I'm in some movies, so I'm going to be shooting that movie. I'm in Roland's movie, acting, working at Motif, still doing Comic-Con stuff, still doing interviews. Now I'm editing it myself, and now we're going to go up to shoot this
in Maine.
This COVID-type isolation film. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like The Outsider. It's going to be a little bit like Blue Velvet, like David Lynch, a little real kind of crazy stuff like that.
But talking about photography, it's very
yes, we're focusing very much on the image and the photography.
David Lynch's.
Yeah.
George Stevens too.
Brilliant. Yeah. Excellent.
George Stevens did in fact, this is another story I think that our audience would like, and I didn't mention this before. Talking about, and we're going to talk, because this is so serious now, folks. When you do a movie, it's out there forever and ever and ever, right? Yeah. I mean, your work is out there, your creation is out there forever. Yeah. You've worked very hard on it. Right. George Stevens, the great George Stevens, Shane, The Greatest Story Ever Told, Diary of Anne Frank, and other films too. A Place in the Sun, Giant.
Yep.
He was the director. He and his son worked as kind of co-producers on the films.
Okay.
And after Giant was completed, there was pre-production, production, which is the actual shooting, and post-production, which is the editing and putting everything together.
Yep.
George Stevens was in the editing suite, and George Jr. was sitting next to him. Now, this was over a course of 6 months.
Yeah, wow.
And George Stevens shot everything.
Yeah.
And like George Sr. is putting everything together.
Yep.
And George Jr., who was a grown man and a producer himself, said, "Hey, Dad, how long have we been working on this movie now, post-production?"
Yeah.
6 months. 6 months, at least.
Right.
He said, "Dad, we got to finish this. I mean, we got to get this released." Long story short, it became a very big success. Yep. George Jr. said, "Look, Dad, we got to release this. I mean, we're under pressure here." And George Stevens Sr., the great director, said, "George, I have to be very careful about putting this film together.
Right.
You know what's going to happen? When we release this, it's forever."
People are going to see this,
Forever.
You can't take that away. You can't unsee this.
You can't unsee it. This is forever.
Once the montage of the script plays, it can't be unplayed.
This is forever.
You can't undo.
So what I do here, even for the 6 months or whatever, is forever.
Yeah.
And it became
Mistakes
a classic film.
Ugly, beautiful. Light and the dark.
Right.
The black and the white, the dark and the light, the villain and the hero, the good and the bad.
It's all tools for filmmaking.
Devil and the angel.
And symbolism, metaphors, and all this other stuff.
Absolutely.
So what you do, Chris, is going to last. It's forever.
You're putting a lot of pressure on me, John.
Right? It's forever.
But watch it in reverse.
But not only that,
watch the movie in rewind.
It gives you the opportunity to say, look, what I have to say is going to be out there, and who knows who's going to benefit from it too.
That's what I was retreating from.
And that's what this film that you're talking about in Maine.
Yeah.
It seems that is going in that direction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like the second attempt at my first film, Human Nature. Human Nature was a film I made about a writer rewriting the story of his life, the choices we made, good and bad, and how they affect you. In the Human Nature, we actually, at the very end of the film, we roll the whole film backwards. So the film ends, credits roll, and the entire movie plays from beginning to end in reverse, or from end to beginning in reverse.
And talking about ending, we have to end this conversation.
I love it. Thank you,
Chris Ferreira. Thank you so much for being a very interesting guest here on this program. Check the gate. For those of you who don't know, that means it's over, folks. Now, the show continues next time.
Yeah.
But our interview now.
It continues in your imagination.
In your
You're
imagination.
gonna
But
play this
actually,
over and over.
thanks to Ted
All the
Lewis.
mistakes and, oh, God.
Thanks to Ted Lewis, this show is going to run
forever and ever and ever
on social media.
In eternity. That's just your hell. Hell is just this for me. I'm just kidding.
Thank you so much. Come back on the show.
John, I had a blast.
Did you have a good
Thank
time
you
tonight?
so much for the invite. I'm so glad
We had a good time
so long. COVID, kept putting it off, but it was.
No, I know.
This is perfect timing.
Now we're
It's the right
back. We're
time.
taking
Yeah.
baby steps.